I think that we're living in very challenging times where governments all over the world are having to adopt new strategies, new initiatives, new policies to deal with increasing costs. From coast to coast, we see governments really trying to manage the resources they have, their competing needs, and tough decisions, hard decisions have to be made by leaders. And it's not different from Nigeria. We over the years we've seen efforts by different governments to try and improve the the lives of Nigerians, try and improve our economy, try and uh, increase the purchasing power of our people. But we also have an increasing population. You have a currency that is competing against other very strong currencies. You have high cost of production, high cost of raw materials. A lot of things go into it. And when government is faced with budgeting, it has to look at both the inflow and the outflow, and then prioritize. Governments all over the world look for a way to increase their revenue based on the resources they have. In the case of Nigeria, we are almost just a mono product or mono resource. We all know that oil brings in most of our resources, especially the foreign currency. Um, but I think that right now we're seeing that the dollar is going up. We're also seeing efforts on the part of government to make sure that the effects of the removal of subsidy is cushioned for Nigerians. We're also dealing with the vagaries in the volume of naira dollars that we earn, and also the fluctuating dollar price of crude oil. Because the truth be said, that's the lion in the room, or that's the elephant in the room, as they say. It's about the currency stability, both the local currency and the foreign currency, the naira and the dollar. If your currency suffers any devaluation, benched against the dollar, there's going to be a problem. Once the price of oil goes up per barrel in dollars that we buy, automatically we have to pay more. And that's what you're seeing. This forces, the interplay of these forces, has put this country in a situation in which you cannot divorce yourself from what is happening in the global crude oil market. I remember in 2015, Indonesia removed subsidy on diesel and petrol. It was a shock. But 5 years down the road, the story of Indonesia became a story from shock to stability. So we're in a phase of shock now. It's a shock therapy for the Nigerian economy, for the Nigerian people to say, listen, we can't afford it no more. And these are the facts. And I think what's important is for agencies of government to come out with the facts, put the hard facts on it. The president is taking hard decisions backed by hard facts. So the president has demonstrated the courage to take the hard decisions. Let's have the agencies and those responsible, the experts in this industry, the upstream, the downstream, come out and put out the facts. People will understand. I keep saying it. Look at Indonesia. Just study what happened. The story became from shock to stability. Well, I don't think Nigerians are in a hurry for results. Like I said, it's a shock therapy, to say is a moment of awakening, to say we have to make adjustments, we have to make sacrifices. We cannot pretend to the facts that we have, because these facts guide us in taking some of these tough decisions. Decisions are not taken in the void or in a vacuum. Okay? And I think that what's going to be important is what the government has started doing in terms of palliatives. But also, it's important to communicate, give the citizens they had the benefit of understanding why this action has been taken. And you have to sustain that communication. Let the experts step forward and provide the rationale for this. I just talked about Indonesia. There are about 4 other countries that went through this phase. But the Indonesian experience readily comes to mind because it was that moved from shock with the same challenges we had, moved to stability. So, what brought about the stability? When the shock happened, the same thing happened. Inflation, high cost of living, complaints by Indonesians. But then, as government was pruning, individuals were also pruning their budgets. They were pruning their excesses. They were looking inwards for homemade goods. They were substituting foreign honey for homemade honey, foreign fabric. So it's a collective effort, and that's what happened. But then they also did a few things right on the part of government. They made sure that local refining, there was a percentage of local refining that was consistent to kind of substitute for the oil that was coming in and they were paying so much money. So we need to crank up our local refineries. Luckily, the Dangote refinery is on board already. Port Harcourt, Kaduna, they're looking to privatize them, and that should be done very quickly. Dangote, Port Harcourt refinery, Kaduna refinery, if all these come on stream, we're going to beat down the foreign exchange, the currency we used to buy crude oil. We're going to beat it down by over 50%. And that releases the pressure on the Naira. It releases the pressure on even government to be able to get surplus resources to take care of other needs, other levels of infrastructure. Before Dangote ever came up, we had refineries that are functioning in this country. Back up. We got it right. Every oil producing country must have a refining capacity that is indigenous. We had the Kaduna refinery, almost 30 years plus. We have the Port Harcourt refinery, massive. And the effort has been ongoing. Remember, about 10 years ago, we got to a point in which we almost sold those refineries. But because the process was also riddled with a bit of opaqueness and it was like we're going to offload the Commonwealth to some private hands, the government that came after Jonathan pulled back and said, listen, let's do the turnaround and maintenance. And it was given to 2 companies for $3 billion. Now, what should happen is that this government, President Bola Tinubu's government, should call these 2 companies that got 1.5 billion for turnaround and maintenance. Let them tell us what they've done. Because even if we're going to privatize and sell them, you don't want to sell carcass. Let's have value for the money. And when you look at privatization, I'm not sure these refineries were run profitably. So the part of privatization is excellent. If we're able to unbundle this, Kaduna and Port Harcourt, they join that cluster. Dangote is private. Kaduna becomes private. Government hands up, provides the enabling environment, regulation, guidelines, and the rest. That's it. Best practices. And then the competition. Look, we need an oil industry that operates like the airline aviation industry. Well, you see, right now, Dangote has not put out his price. Okay? What's good with a free market system or economy is that consumers are presented with options and choices. You can either decide to line up and buy a cheaper fuel from NNPC, or you can decide to just drive in and buy from Bovas or another gas station. It depends. The price on offer or the prices on offer are different, isn't it? Yeah. When you buy your tickets You go online, you check. Airpeace, 160,000, Abuja to Lagos. ValueJet, 140,000. Max Air, 142,000. Sometimes it's just the 2,000. You just buy what you want. They run the same aircrafts, they run the same distance, they buy the same aviation fuel, yet they charge differently for their tickets. So there's no law that says that you cannot import. You can decide if you think importing is cheaper for you, good and dandy. If you think you want to buy from Dangote and you want to sell, people will come and buy from you. So that's what free market is about. We can't change the rules because it's Nigeria. And I'm telling you that when you have a Dangote, you have Kaduna Refinery privatized, we don't know what they will call it, you have Port Harcourt privatized, you already have three majors, independent. And don't forget, some of them might even end up importing to support their local production. That's the stage we want to be. When you calculate how much money this country has put into the Kaduna and Port Harcourt refineries, you'll be shocked. Government should hands up, privatize them, unbundle them quickly. Already, Dangote has already set a standard. You bring in competition, then you also give your citizens and consumers, best prices. My starting point will be to first give President Bola Ahmed Tinubu some massive commendation for embracing CNG from the get-go. And it also connects to the fact that when an administration says we're removing subsidy, they know down the line the cost of fuel will go up. But they also know that as the government, you must provide alternatives. So the decision to embrace CNG as a national policy was very important. That buy-in from government. We also saw the setting up of a presidential committee on CNG, they call it PICNG, that brought both private and government sector people together that have been working on this. Beyond that national announcement, you must unleash a national campaign. National campaign of awareness, of adoption, and implementation. You see, right now, we're seeing elements of implementation, but we're not seeing a widespread element of awareness and education. It has to be see and tell. On a consistent, you wet the floor consistently for 1 year. It's not something you do for 2 weeks and go back home. Because we're looking at the departure from just sole reliance on crude oil. You're introducing a brand new product. People want to know about safety. They want to know about cost. They want to know about how they can convert and all of that. They also want to know about availability. Imagine if fuel was expensive and we can't drive into gas stations. We see gas stations all over the place, petrol stations all over the place. CNG conversion points must be all over the place. You must also set a national timeline. In every month, we want to make sure that in each state we convert X number. Because the uptake of the CNG will be critical. This week, I did a number of tweets. That was because I realized that the awareness level was low. How many Nigerians know that with 15,000 watts of CNG, you can drive from Lagos to Ilorin, Kwara State, as opposed to almost 80,000 naira full tank of petrol? How many of them know that, God forbid, an explosion with the car that has crude oil is more devastating than one that has the CNG gas? These are facts. And they're not facts that are manufactured by Nigeria. We have several African countries. Let's even stay in the continent. They have embraced CNG. They've tested them. So it's cleaner, promotes a green economy, the environment is protected, it's cheaper. You understand? You get better box mileage for your money. And then, to a large extent, it gives you two options. You can use the petrol when you want, you can use CNG when you want. That's it. So I do agree that beyond the fact that it's a fantastic idea, embracing CNG, we need to work on not just the adoption, the awareness and the implementation. They're inseparable. They can't play catch up. Yeah, but let me let me first take it from a youth perspective. Um, and let me take it from the National Youth Investment Fund, which was just 75 billion. President Tinubu increased it to 110 billion. That is a fund dedicated to young entrepreneurs. If you apply yourself to that process, you have a business plan, you will get funded for it. That's a massive incentive. So 110 billion naira, if you're talking about 2.5 million, 2 million youth. Imagine 2 million youth with small businesses. And then you start a small business, you will have one or two other youth working for you. That's important. So when government provides such opportunities, you apply yourself to it. You look at the nano businesses. Nano businesses, you know what it means. The smaller businesses around the corners. The money has been rolling out, 50,000. So we have to pay attention to these efforts because very often people just say government is doing nothing. No. What are the facts? Look at the student loan, for instance. It's almost like the return of the bursary. This government thought of it and worked on it within 1 year. Universities, over 80,000 and still climbing. It's also helping the university to weed out people that are not authentic students. Because once you are not properly, they're auditing their own student data. And once your data is not fully complete, you can't even access the money. I can rule out several. Look at Bank of Industry. Look at the consumer credit scheme. Almost 350 billion. And that these funds are actually accessible. It's even in America or in Europe, when you have government programs, there are stringent procedures. You must fill a form. You must provide information. You must wait in line to get your turn. The idea of thinking that government will just knock on your door and hand you money no, we live over. In fact, that you get things based on your number. You don't have a social security number, you get nothing, nada. And that's why the rice has been distributed now at 50,000 being sold at government price. You must have a name to get it. So while so many people see the cup half empty, I see the cup half full. And that's where the difference comes in. When you see it half empty, that means you're saying, basically it's empty. Government is doing nothing. But we know that that's not true. It's half full. Does government need to do more? Absolutely. But then, are the citizens taking advantage of those opportunities provided by government? Or they're just whining? There are millions of Nigerians silently benefiting from these policies. The conditional cash credit that goes to all people is working. I know they're taking names from states, age grade. It's working. So we need an accentuation. We need scalability in terms of the numbers of beneficiaries of these government policies. And I think we're just going through, when you fly, there's no way you won't hit rough patches. Nigeria is facing the headwinds. And when, as a pilot, you face headwinds, you take tough decisions. You hang on for a while. Where you see a slight pathway, you dive through very quickly. We're facing headwinds. And that means we must take hard decisions. We must choose the road that is less traveled so that we can get to the destination where we want to be. There is space for you to grow in youth administration, and there is evidence that they're already growing from the angle of inclusivity. We've seen demonstrably on the part of Mr. President the inclusion. For the first time, you have a cabinet that is peopled by so many young people. In fact, the youth ministry is led by two young people who are below 40. You look at several other agencies and parastatals of government, from SMEDAN to a couple of others. What either though we didn't have, you have these young ones being DGs and executive secretaries. That is inclusivity. Well, there are two factors that will determine whether we will see that manifestation in 10 years, in a decade. The first factor must be the availability of resources. The budget for youth development has been very paltry. Just like we talk about the budget for education. So when you look at Nigeria's overall budget, what quotient or what percentage is for youth development? Right now, I'm not sure it's above 10 or 11%. And it's just gone up under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You check, so when you look at the demographics of youth population in this country, you put that against the budget, you see the gulf between it. So there's no country that has been able to solve both youth unemployment, investment in youth, without deliberately allocating massive resources. Because the question that comes is in scalability. If you have 50 million youth waiting for quality education, what support do they get? If you have 50 million youth waiting for funds for entrepreneurship and you only cater for 250,000 out of 50 million or 5 million, it's as if you've done nothing. And that is limited to some number because the funds available cannot take care of everyone. So funding is important. And that funding should be a compact one. Funding to come in from corporate and then private sector and public sector. And how can you achieve that? By designing policies and initiatives to which the corporate can buy into it. And corporate, they only plug in and invest into a policy that has deliverables, that has M&E, monitoring and evaluation, that has transparency, that has a level playing field entry for beneficiaries. So we must adopt that template, and then the funds can come in. When were we able to bring in funds from Dangote and Adebutu Keshint to fix the National Stadium in Surulere and the Abuja Moshood Abiola Stadium? Because we embraced the template of the private sector. We said, look, we have this to do. You have a CSR. Now we have this stadium. These are the problems we have. Can you commit to fixing 3 or 4 of this? They say yes. You don't have to bring the money to government. You do the procurement process. Do the procurement process, choose the person that will do it, and then monitor along with us for delivery. And that's what happened. That partnership worked. Transparency, accountability, quality control, monitoring and evaluation, all of that worked. We also developed a matrix of SIPs. We call them strategic implementation partners. We didn't even know COVID-19 was going to hit. But when we came in, we saw digital skills were necessary. How do we partner with the leaders in this area? IBF, Microsoft, and Google, my business. We quickly sat with them, AFDB, to say, look, this is what we want to do. We want to build capacity. We want to upskill our youth. During COVID, we didn't know COVID would come. We were able to train over 300,000 Nigerian youth online. So when there was COVID, people couldn't go. People were busy earning new skills, upskilling themselves and earning certificates online. By the time COVID left, they could go out with improved CVs. So You must have the right policies, well designed, that matches what the market requires. There's skills mismatch in this country. We're not providing the skills that the companies and the economy needs. Right now, the skills needed in this economy is different from the skills needed in the US. So if we're developing policies that is training people for skills that they will have to travel out to go and use, no, we're not helping the economy. And we're also deliberate. We found about 15 different skills that were critical. One of them that we found very lately before I left was cybersecurity. We saw that the jobs available in cybersecurity in this country alone, was almost 8 to 10 million. And all you need for that is 3 months, 4 months, get a certificate, stage 1, stage 2 in cybersecurity. So you can, every organization, even individuals at home, you get your laptop, you want to build up a firewall, you want to make sure they can hack into your phone. That part of that is cybersecurity. We live in an age of big data. Most of us store data on our laptops. Companies store sensitive data. Government store data. You need a cybersecurity expert, 3 or 4 in your system, to make sure that the systems are working well. You understand? Because there's interconnectivity of all these devices. You don't want storing something and then somebody in Russia or somewhere can see it. You want to protect, your patent and the rest of them. So we started training the young people. The first training we called for, almost 5,000 youths applied. And we got them trained. For the second level, they had to pay because we funded the first part. The second level became slightly expensive. So we just chose a number of them. If we had resources, we would have just graduated those 5,000 people. Up to today, cybersecurity, there are millions of jobs there. So it's about resources. It's about having the right programs and initiatives. And it's about making sure that the template you choose is favorable and acceptable to the private sector. Government fund alone cannot deal with youth investment. It must be some partnership. Well, so let me approach it this way. The National Youth Service Corps, when you look at the decree establishing it, it was very emphatic to promote national unity, not to promote jobs and employment for the youth. Very clear. To promote national unity. And it came out of the disaster of the war, where this country was torn apart. And the very notion of one nation, one destiny, the notion of national unity was completely distorted. So to break that, the enclave of ethnicity and all of that, we say, look, let's have a scheme that promotes national unity. During the Civil War, it was the East against the West and the rest. People will not cross over. So let's have these young people who are the leaders of tomorrow. Let's have them come out of the university and let's send the Yoruba man to Igbo land. Let's send the Hausa man to Yoruba land. They will learn so many things from there. But beyond that, they're able to also impart and help the society. When you look at the NYSC scheme, there's so many things in the community development, the Sahid, so many components of it. Culture, tradition, and the rest. You've done youth service, I've done youth service. I can never say it was a complete waste of my time in 1 year. Because if you go to youth service and you think it's employment you want, then you don't also pass through that service and get the benefit of it. But also, you know that by default, the youth service has provided a window for people to get employed and also get cognate experience. Because if you are lucky to serve in a place of primary assignment that coincides with your qualification, a civil engineer, you get to serve in Julius Berger. You go to sites and the rest. Practical experience. Already after 1 year, you're either retained or if you're not retained, you become more suitable or more appealing to employers because they will have seen that you had 1 year. Of course, it's youth service experience, but it's work experience. It's part of your work experience. So I do know we try to track what's the percentage of youth corpers that get retained in their places of primary assignment after 1 year, and what percentage get thrown out. Of course, we couldn't really place our hand, but clearly from anecdotal evidence, we know that between 17 to 21% get retained by their place of primary assignment, either on contract or part-time. That's one. Two, another 25 leave the youth service and move to start their small businesses. Because there's a SAID program plugged in that teaches you how to do CCTV, how to do POP, how to do so many things. So some of them, right from camp, they are practicing those skills. When they just leave, they start their business straight. They're not looking for jobs. So to a large extent, when you look at it, the NYSC has achieved its goal. Let me also, it's also it's some kind of buffer. Is a service that the scheme that gives our young people that transition they need. You see, you're in university for 4 years. You're within a protected environment. School, feeding. The real world the reality out there is completely different. The moment you stop being a student, the challenges are massive. So that 1 year also gives you an opportunity to experience life. You know what it is to earn salary or stipend, to manage the stipend. In part of your stipend, you have to send something to your parents. You build new friends. Some of my best friends are friends I made during the youth service over time. Through them too, you can form partnerships and form companies. So that 1 year, let me tell you, if you take, and we did it, when they were saying there's a bill to knock off NYSC, on my own, I got 200 youth corpers in about 5 states. I said they should just ask them at random, do you want the scheme erased? Of the 200, only 31 wanted the scheme erased. Most of them say, no. We need this to calm down, to understand Nigeria, to travel, to do this, to make our plans. That buffer, it's important. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
See you next time.